Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Tackle Shop Live.
Sunny day, right there you took my breath away. Young and pretty, was it just a dream? The next day you called me up, you told me I'm your little buttercup. You came over and you fell into my arms.
What's up? What's up? How you doing, Carlisle? Scott Lockhoff's in the house. How you doing, Scott? Good to see you. Breezy Flyer, as always. Tim McSee, looking forward to it. Right on, brother. Me too. Chris Fenninger. How you doing, Chris? Dave Richardson. Larry, how are you? Galen Heathcote. What's up, buddy? Good talking to you on the phone the other day. Ed M. Jerry Otto. What's up, man?
Chills running down my neck. I'm going crazy from just the thought of you. A long blonde hair and you
John Pennington, Joseph Pastorino, what do you say, fellas? Tammy Demon's in the house. How are you doing, Tammy? Jimmy Arnold, what's up, brother? And I mean that in a good way. Let's see. John S. is here. Frank Garvey, Rock Pickett. Man, we got a great crew of guys. Sam and Sam's here. Don Roeder, how you doing, Don? Good to see you, brother. Lisa Lake Mark, how are you, pal? Conway, in the house. Wouldn't be right without you there, brother. Steve McGargy, how you doing, buddy? Man, we got a great crew of guys here. Kenny Clemmer's here. Dave Richardson. Jack Hinkle. Man, Kevin Geezy, what's up, Kevin? Andre, how are you, pal? Man, I'll tell you what, great crew of guys here. Appreciate everybody stopping in for another edition of Tackle Shop Live. We got a great show for you tonight. We're going to talk about some cold weather tips and tricks for your wintertime fishing, some things that George and I do that might help you out. When that water gets real cold like it's getting right now. Although last week, crazy fishing. I mean, unbelievable. Thursday and Friday up here was 55 degrees or something like that. Nick, it was crazy.
I'm telling you.
Did you get out at all?
I got out Monday.
Did you?
But I didn't get out in that good weather.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I got out. I waited a little too long.
Yeah.
But you know what, Mike? You get out when you can, right?
You go when you go, man. You go when you can.
You had a great trip.
Oh, man. I'll tell you, we were torn because last minute we were going to go smallmouth fishing Friday, and then last minute we got a call from one of our guys about going striper fishing. And I know that down in the bay they were catching giant stripers like no tomorrow. I mean, they were catching 25, 30 fish over 40 inches a day. So I thought, I was like, man, I was torn because it was a great opportunity to catch a real big fish, maybe your personal best or whatever. So I talked George into going down with me, and we went down to Deal, Maryland, which is like the middle bay part of the Chesapeake Bay. And we went out with Griffin's Guide Service, which is a bunch of good guys, Steve down there, and great guys. Just took us right out, man. We got it right out on the fish, fishing around. And lo and behold, I throw out there and I snag up on one of these giants. And I mean to tell you, what a giant. I don't get like a little school kid every now and again, seeing like maybe it's like going out and seeing KVD, you know what I mean? You're walking up to KVD, you're all excited like a school kid, you don't even know how to talk.
Right.
They flopped this 48-inch fish up on the deck, and I about went loopy. I mean, it was unbelievable. This giant fish laying on this deck. It was my biggest fish I ever caught, striper wise.
Nice.
And a weird thing about it was they had these rods all rigged up, and and I looked at the baits, and I saw a bait that I wanted, so I just grabbed this rod and I'm throwing this thing, and I'm like, this rod's really light, and I caught a couple of like 30 inchers, and it worked well. But when I caught that big one, I'm fighting this fish. And the guy says, man, that rod's really doing good for it being a 6'8" medium X Pride. Yes, that's what I said. A 6'8" medium X Pride that I use for smallies on the river with a 1/10 ounce jig head. I had an 1.5 ounce jig head on there with a 7-inch diesel minnow on it, and I whooped that striper, that 48-inch striper, in about 5 minutes with that rod. It was incredible. That rod just blew me away. I can't believe it didn't blow up. Can't believe it didn't break like in 5 pieces.
That's a great story.
Yeah, I had that thing bent over great. So anyway, I got my personal best. It was a great trip. George was with us. He caught a bunch of fish and had a good time. I mean, we we fished 5 hours. It was a beautiful day, great sunset, really cool to get out there in decent weather and then catch that fish. So
that is cool because this time of year you don't know what kind of weather you're going to get.
No, you really don't.
You get that brutal wind.
Normally when I'm on the bay, it's 6-footers and getting tossed around, and I'm just having, it's just always one of those days.
Right.
But this one here worked out well, and we'd pull up on the school of fish. You'd see these big cows in there rolling around, but it was a tough bite. It really was. They were slapping at it. We missed a lot of fish. We lost a lot of fish. They just weren't getting it right, but it was fun. It was fun to do that. So, that was awesome. Josh Weinberger, how you doing? Stephen Griffin. Yeah, buddy. Absolutely, pal. Love fishing with you guys. You guys always put us on them. Griffin's Guide Service is one of the premier services down on the bay. They fish totally different than anybody you'll ever fish with down there. They are tuned in big time with their electronics. They hunt fish. They don't go fishing. They hunt fish down and they catch them. That's what they do, and it's really unique. Just watch them work the boats and watch them work the electronics, and then they just get right on them. I mean, they have forward-facing sonar on their boats. They have side imaging on their boats. Those fish don't have a chance when you go out with Griffin. I mean, they track them down big time. So if you guys ever want to go, check them out. Griffin's Guide Service. They're out of Deal, Maryland, most of the time, maybe Chesapeake Beach, but that's that Middle Bay area. I think this year they're going to switch up for the closure because they're going to close down the bay. They're going to switch up for Virginia. So if you want to go down to Virginia Beach and fish for a trophy fish, they'll be down there. Give them a call, set up a trip. They have a great deal going on there. So
Miss me?
George, were you holding Mike in the boat when he had that big fish?
No, I'll tell you. He did it like he did it before, like it wasn't his first time. It was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I whooped up in that thing.
We've been warming up on some big fish all year, though.
Yeah.
That was my third trip out with Griffins, and Mike and I did a little ocean striper fishing. So we've been
muscling up on them.
We've been working
our technique.
Well, you know what? What's that one that you struggle with? There's a fish that you do struggle with.
Tuna.
So yeah, this is working you up to that tuna again.
Yeah,
I'll tell you the truth. I'd rather catch a smallmouth than any of them, but they're all fun. Trust me.
I mean,
it's a blast. It's a different experience.
Yeah.
But give me a smallmouth.
The nice thing about catching big stripers is you can whoop them up pretty quick, like 5 minutes. You can do it. Those tuna, man, they wear you out. I got revenge on them. I got to do it one more time just to kind of get it going. But anyway, we got some great stuff going on. For all you guys that don't know, next weekend here at the shop is our famous Bassfest show. World famous Bassfest show 2024. And every year it gets better. And this year we outdid ourselves with the talent that we're going to get in here, with the rep groups are going to be here, the specials that we have, the add-on sales stuff that we have, just everything about it is elevated, don't you think?
Yeah, you want to hear some specials?
Yeah, I do.
All right. I'm going to let a couple out of the bag. Shimano Metanium DC.
Oh.
Now it's an expensive reel, okay? It's not something everybody's picking up. It's $500. But it's 20% off.
Oh, that's
I don't know if you can do that kind of math, Nick, or not, but
I'll let that up to you.
That's a great discount, and for a reel like that is phenomenal, actually.
Yeah. So that, and they're not going to last long. I'm looking over here. There's might be there's a dozen.
Yeah,
Doesn't sound that impressive, but there's not a dozen DC Metaniums
anywhere
in the eastern half of the U.S.
Yeah.
St. Croix Legend Extremes. And if anybody that works for St. Croix or represents St. Croix in any way is listening, hit your mute button, and then you won't be offended. 25% off. And I got some bait specials. Like I said, I've been back in the office working, man. You know, I'm gonna come out one day next week and lubricate all the hinges on the cash registers so they run good, because it's gonna roll. Uncle Josh pork rind.
Oh, perfect timing.
Cold weather killer.
Cold weather
right?
killer.
You know, and the price of pork has gone up. I don't know if you tried to buy this stuff lately, but you know, you used to be able to buy a dozen jars for what you buy one jar for now.
Well, that's what originally put Uncle Josh out of business, and then they kind of reincarnated it.
50% off.
Yeah. Dang.
Get your pork on.
Get your pork on.
Berkeley. I got some Berkeley specials. War pigs. Because it's trap season. 50% off.
Wow. Giving stuff away, Dick.
Pretty much. Shape 108.
Oh, yeah.
3 sizes, every color made.
That's a great crawfish trailer.
50% off. Only those 2 days, not online for any of these specials. And before you call in and ask to have anything set back for you, don't.
Yeah.
Because that's not going to happen. Strike King 6XD Hard Knock. The Hard Knock only, not the regular 6XD.
Yeah.
50% off. I'll try to find some stuff that's less discount than that, but right now I'm stuck on 50%.
We're doing another big special with Strike King too, aren't we? You have to come to this show to find out. Do you?
George is working in the Bass laboratory back there.
Yeah. So there are
those are just those are what we call loss leaders in the industry, and that's just to kind of like, in case you were thinking about going out and shopping for like paint with your wife, or going to, you know, arts and craft show or something like that with your girlfriend. You know, we just want to get you over the edge from that faulty thinking. You know, motivate yourself. We got some specials. We got the speakers. We got the pro staff. We got the SFT staff will be here. Cameraman Nick's going to be roving reporter. I don't know what else you could pop. Oh, and I looked at the weather long term, and we all know how good the weatherman is. Well, I mean, I don't know about where you all live, but around here, we got some of the best in the industry.
Every year
and it's looking like 53 degrees and partly cloudy.
Every year
or mostly sunny.
We panic about weather. You know, we worry about it for the show because we want to have a great show, and there's people coming from all over. So, you know,
it's all good in the hood, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of speakers, I want to go over them one more time with everybody. For the guys that are new to the show, this show is going to be absolutely special. We have KVD coming to the show on Saturday, courtesy of Strike King Luge. You definitely want to come here and see KVD. We've been trying 15 years to get him, and we finally got him. So he's going to be here on Saturday. We also have GDP. Greg DePalma is going to be here, courtesy of SFT.
I saw him on TV today.
I did too. I was watching whatever show that was, and he was laying that giant largemouth. That was such a great clip. I was talking with Patrick Walters on the telephone the other day, and he's coming courtesy of Daiwa. He's fired up. He's going to do some great seminars. He is just totally stoked to be here, and just a wonderful guy to talk to. You guys are going to absolutely love him. Also, I talked to this week Alex Weatherall. He is coming with Shimano, sponsored by Shimano. Great guy, Northeast fella, knows his smallmouth fishing, knows his Northeast fishing. He's going to do some great seminars for us. Gray Buck's coming. Man, Gray's a great MLF pro. He's sponsored by Bill Lewis, coming here, courtesy of Bill Lewis. He's going to be here. Jesse Wiggins, man, he is fired up. I talked to him this week. He is fired up. He's been here before. He's excited to come back. Courtesy of St. Croix, he'll be here. And last but not least, we got Nick Kousvis from Megabass, Canadian fisherman, Lake Ontario, Thousand Islands, St. Lawrence area.
Bengals fan.
And a Bengals fan. And he's going to break it down for us for the smallmouth fishing up there and how to catch giants. And because I know a lot of guys from down this way always travel up. So if you want to get some good information and good hot spots to go to, you're going to want to be here for Nick Kousvis.
Well, you know what's interesting about having Nick here is a couple things, but Mike is true, correct. A lot of people from this area, and basically we can expand it out to the mid-Atlantic states, make an annual pilgrimage up north. So, from that perspective, invaluable information. But, smallmouth up north are completely different from smallmouth around here, which are also completely different from smallmouth in the southeast. So there's some northern techniques that you can apply to the whole north. And that's where I find Nick's seminars outstanding. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I'll tell everybody, I'm not going to tell you all the specials, but you're going to want to come here. There's going to be some great specials that you don't want to miss. And this show is one that we really love to do, and it's our biggest show, and this year it's going to be huge. And don't worry, we have plenty of room. We have a 30 by 40 heated tent there, so there's going to be plenty of room. We got pizza truck coming, so you can stay, you can have some pizza, make sure you're well hydrated and you're well fed up for your shopping experiences here, because it's going to be full on, power shopping. And I know what kind of energy it takes to do that. So don't worry, we're going to take good care of you. We got our shuttle service. We got extra off-site parking. All that can be found out and seen on our website, sfttackle.com. We have a banner up there. Click on the banner and it'll answer most of your questions. And we will have a list of hotels on there, because several guys are coming down and staying. We've been getting a lot of calls on that too. So, so there you have it. Bassfest 2024 next weekend, starting on Friday. You do not want to miss it. All right, we're going to get on moving here, and we like to talk tackle, and we are a tackle shop, and we call this segment Tackle Talk. So every week we bring out and bust out some new and old baits that are relevant. And this is no different than any other show. And George has got a whole pile of stuff to show us. What are you talking about this week, George? What do you got that's hot that we need to know about?
You know what? I have a few things here that caught my attention over the week. Usually I just go by like shipments that are coming in, but there's a few things that caught my attention that were from previous weeks that I went back on my notes on. And the first one is the Evergreen Combat Stick. So Evergreen, is basically a Japanese tackle company. Okay. They do, obviously we know they're baits, right? They don't do a really good job of keeping stuff in stock over here, but I don't know why that is. It is what it is. But we have a bunch of their rods, which are pretty nice. The first generation of Evergreen Combat Sticks were made famous by the Brett Height jackhammer rod, which is a glass rod. And, it's, I mean, you can't say anything more than's already been said 10 times over about that rod. It's, it kind of set the standard for glass chatterbait rods, and it's spun off all the other manufacturers trying to build that style of rod, because prior to that we really didn't fish a bladed jig on a glass rod. But it's a moving bait, it's a reaction bait. Glass has certain benefits to that, cranking, trapping, and if you build one heavy enough, they're a pretty good bladed jig rod. And if you learn how to fish a glass bladed jig rod and kind of adapt your system to it, the landing ratio on them is incredible. And that being said, the combat stick, in my opinion, was formed just because of the glass chatterbait rod. I mean, it's Brett Height's signature rod. He's a big evergreen U.S. pro. And, they supported him with a full line of rods to go around that. Because contrary to popular belief, you can't live on a jackhammer alone. You can get close, though. So the number one negative about the evergreen jackhammer rod was how heavy it was.
Yeah.
You pick it up and you're like, wow, this rod weighs a lot. I'm talking about mass weight in the hand. And it's a glass rod. It's a powerful rod. So there's a lot of material and resin there. Okay. And you give and you get. Well, the new version is not like that.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you can feel this through the camera. You might not be able to because it's pretty light. But the new combat stick, now this is the jackhammer rod. It's kind of cool in that it says jackhammer special. Okay. It's got the jackhammer logo on there. Because for those of you who don't know, the jackhammer chatterbait is a collab with Z-Man. It's not Z-Man's bait, it's Evergreen's bait, but they collabed on it. Z-Man does the building, Z-Man does the distribution. Z-Man had a lot of input on colors. So they work together. So you got that logo on there. This thing is, I'm going to say it's half the weight of the other rod. I'm just going there. Fuji Alkanite guides, which are a nice high quality guide. You can debate guide rings until the cows come home. One person says alkanite, one person says silicon carbide, whatever. As long as they're round and smooth, I don't really care what they're made out of myself. I do like a durable frame, and you'll notice these guides are triple foot guides to the tip. So you're not going to get that bent guide, in and out of the rod locker. Your big-footed buddy stepping on 6 of your rods on the front deck while he's fighting a 2-pounder that was an 11-pounder when he set the hook. That kind of thing. But this is nice. We got a Fuji reel seat, which is exposed blank. We got split grip. Price only went up $30, $229.99. So $30 more. In my opinion, much nicer rod, much lighter, same exact. You could literally blindfold somebody, and other than the weight of the rod, you went from the power and the flex are the same rod. So they definitely nailed the action of the rod. It's identical to the previous generation. Yeah, honestly, when we were at ICAST and we picked them up, that's the very first thing you notice is the weight difference, and plus it's cool looking. It's blacked out. Yeah, there is a limited edition version that's got some crazy red on it. If you guys are interested in that, we have those also, but they're not $229.99.
Yeah, nice rod.
There are a lot more. So that I wanted to point that one out to you. There's a whole line of these, by the way. There's a whole line of casting. There's a whole line of spinning, but I wanted to point that rod out. And I also want to point out a rod that they call the gizmo rod, as in the gizmo bait, the little plastic gizmo bait. So this is a spinning rod, obviously. 610 medium ST. So, when you see ST on a rod, what they're telling you is that the tip is solid. So when you come up here and you see the taper on this thing is like ridiculously extra fast, this whole area from here, that's about 9 to 10 inches of rod is solid carbon coming out of this blank. And that gives you that ridiculously extra fast taper. This thing's got a ton of backbone all the ways up to here. This is like a 90-10 rod.
Very, very specialized rod.
So they call it the gizmo rod, but think drop shot, think Ned rig, think your finesse type stuff like that. It's got some juice. I mean, when you flex it on the ceiling or on the floor, you'll notice the tip is perfect, and then it's just like 90% backbone. Great feeling rod. Again, it's at $229.99 price point.
Show that handle.
610. You got a Fuji reel seat. Okay, up locking, which means the reel seat locks from the bottom. Up locking, split grip.
There's a picture of the gizmo in case people don't know what it looks like, George.
Alkanite guides. They call it the gizmo rod because they make a little lure called the gizmo. I hope you don't want any of them.
Yeah, you can't get them. So,
actually, I have like 30 of them on the way here, but
good luck with that.
Apparently the guy that invented the gizmo was on Epstein's Island or something, and they just released the documents, so shit went sideways. So that's that. That's a pretty cool set of rods. Way, way improved over Generation 1. Generation 1 was very nice.
Yeah.
So this is very nicer. Basically $229. There are a few of the bigger rods that are like $239, but we're just going to say they're $229. Now that special edition evergreen jackhammer rod, that's like $500, but that's a collector's type thing. So anyways, I wanted to bring up the combat sticks. They're new for 24. They have been here for a little while, but we've had a backlog, so we're just getting around to them now. What do you think?
I love them. I love them.
Did you pick any of them up, Nick?
I did. And a point that you brought up when we were at ICAST, I picked up the old version.
Yeah.
And a thought did go through my mind, like, these are heavy.
Yeah.
The jackhammer rod.
Yeah. And I'm like, a little heavy compared to what I know.
Yeah.
But the action was cool. I'm like,
Yeah.
I can see why this thing does what it does. And I actually talked to Brett Height, and he told me why it does what it does.
Yeah.
But when I picked up the one that you're talking about, I'm like, holy crap.
Something you can almost fish.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a year or so ago on the show, we had a big debate one night. Corbin was behind the camera on glass chatterbait rods. And, we all decided that we should fish them. You got to fish them.
Mm-hmm.
So we all, did our due diligence on, getting out of our comfort zone on chatterbait rods and fishing glass. And what I learned about glass is you very rarely lose a fish on a glass chatterbait rod. Very rarely. The other thing I learned about it was if you don't have a heavy powered glass rod, it's very difficult to efficiently fish the chatterbait in grass, which, we like to fish the chatterbait in grass. We actually live to fish the chatterbait. We actually dream of fishing the chatterbait and grass.
Yeah.
How do you feel about fishing the chatterbait and grass, Mike?
Well, I mean, it's the same thing you're saying, with the glass rod and grass, it just, for me, I don't like it. It's just too spongy. Doesn't really work that well. You got to, like you said, if you're going to do it, you got to have a stiff one.
Well, what about a heavy glass rod?
Well, that's what you'd have to do. You have to go to a heavy. And
now, beyond the rod,
yeah,
how do you really feel about fishing a chatterbait and grass? Like, I mean, get on the couch and tell me your problems and your hopes and dreams. I mean, how do you feel about fishing a chatterbait and grass?
I love fishing chatterbait and grass.
I mean, I'm just telling you right now, if I put my boat in the water,
I love fishing chatterbait and grass. I mean, it's just what you do.
If I put the boat in the water and somebody says there's some grass down there, I'm going to get down there and throw a chatterbait in that grass.
I'll get my chatterbait out.
And, while we're on the topic, I have a soft spot in my heart for pad stems and a chatterbait. I'm just going to tell you right now, if it's a pre-spawn situation and a brother can find some pad stems, I will literally.
He'll drive 100 miles to fish pad
and
stems.
And they grow in like
He'll go through
circular patches. They'll grow in like, oblong, roundish type. I just go around.
8 footers to get there, Mike. It sounds like you've been there.
I've been there.
Before.
Doesn't matter.
He's like, we got to go fish pad stems. I'm like, you want to run out there and fish pad stems? He's like, yeah.
I'm just saying.
We're running.
You can say whatever you want to say about me, but you better not talk about my chatterbait. You know what I'm saying?
I love.
How about you, Nick? What's your?
I'm all about the chatterbait, but there's something. We had a Shimano pro in here doing shows. Davis, what was his name? I can't remember, but he was big on the glass rod for chatterbait.
Yeah.
And I was talking to him about it, and he's like, look, he goes, when you use the glass rod for the chatterbait, he said, you cannot worry about feeling the bait because you're not going to be able to feel the bait like you can with, your traditional graphite rod.
Yeah.
And it took me a little bit, but I have fallen in love with the glass rod for the chatterbait. But like you guys said, when I get in around the grass, the pads, anything like that, I'm in the medium heavy. I'm on the heavier side
of glass.
Yes.
You go right to the heavy.
Yeah, I'm not big on. I don't like a medium so much, but I actually use that same kind of rod for cranking too. So it's like,
well,
I'm okay.
I think there's definitely the glass thing, and it makes complete sense. And the big thing is the land and the fish thing. Even if they just swipe at it and get just a little bit of hook, you got that glass to help you land that fish.
I have not lost the fish since.
I just can't get used to it in the grass.
Did you talk to that was David Mullins you talked to?
Yeah, because it was
David Mullins.
The Corrado. He was like in the Corrado medium heavy.
Yeah, and we were talking about it, and I'm just like, yeah. So I went that way, and there's somebody else, and he'll be here next week, Jesse Wiggins. So Jesse Wiggins is the one that pretty much showed me which rod I wanted to pick.
I'll bet you it's a Legend glass 7.4 heavy moderate.
It's actually a 7.2
heavy moderate,
but you're right there.
Yep.
And I love it. It took me once or twice fishing with it. At first I'm like, I don't know.
It's a big butted rod.
But then after a while, I'm like, I started landing fish and I'm like, this is different because I've lost a lot of fish in the past and I didn't.
The biggest problem with the St. Croix heavy moderate rods. So you got the Legend, which is, a pricey glass rod. And then you got the Mojo. And the biggest problem with them is, and I think what really is a detriment to their sales is when you look at them on the rack, I mean, they look like tanks.
Yeah.
It's kind of like KVD's glass rods. If you ever picked up a KVD, series from Lew's or from the Signature series, and you look at that thing and it's like, damn, the glass rods. But that is the nature of glass. They're all using a type of glass called S-glass, which is a very light glass. And, do yourself a favor the next time and pick one of them up because they look big and beefy.
Yeah.
Just like this rod. This rod looks big and bulky and beefy. I mean, the St. Croix looks bigger diameter than that.
Well,
but they're light. They're deceiving.
Well, S-glass gets the strength from the diameter, and they are able to make a thin wall so that cuts down on the weight.
Yeah, the weight's way down on them.
Yeah,
and you know, and the
wall's real thin.
sensitivity's there.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
You know, you can fish these chatterbaits on these glass rods.
We've been fishing,
and you can feel like the slightest deviation to the pulse of the bait.
We've been fishing S-Glass since S-Glass came out after the Fritz E-Glass rod, broke onto the market. And then some of these guys started messing around with this S-Glass way back when we started fishing it. And it was just this huge difference in action and feel and sensitivity. And it just kind of overtook the whole market, and that E-Glass thing just kind of went away because the difference is unbelievable, especially in the field. Don't you think, George? It's just,
S-Glass is extremely sensitive, especially with a moving bait, a crankbait, a chatterbait. You're getting that feedback. Obviously, I wouldn't want to try to fish a bottom bait with it because it's not, choose the right tool for the job. But I'll tell you, if you want to learn a little something and if you're always striving to better your game and you consider yourself a really good chatterbait fisherman, I mean, I'm not saying glass is going to make you better, but you will learn some stuff about chatterbait fishing by taking the time to learn a glass rod. I know I did. I don't typically fish the glass rod. I have one at all times rigged and ready in my boat. And I throw it every day I go out, but it's not my go-to. I prefer that stiffness of carbon, but I learned a lot fishing. I learned a lot about a delayed hook set. I learned a lot fishing a chatterbait on glass.
Something I did that I actually never even thought of till now. So when I was using graphite rods for chatterbait, I was fishing 15-pound fluorocarbon. But what I found when I went to the glass rod, what works better for me is like 17, because it allows me to keep that bait up just slightly, just a little bit in that grass, that I don't have to rip it so much, because it is a little bit harder to rip.
Yeah, it is.
Than it is with your graphite.
Well, and choosing the right weight of the chatterbait, it's when you get in that grass, you want to pick that weight of that bait and your trailer to help stay up in that grass. You want to be in the grass, but you don't want to be on the bottom in the grass. You want to be up in the grass, getting that reaction from that fish, popping it and getting that reaction. Now, I will say this. If you're an open water guy and you don't fish a lot of grass, and you're an open water chatterbait chunker, fishing rock, or if you're a smallmouth guy, or, if your lakes don't have grass in them, you can drop back to a medium heavy glass rod. And chatterbait fish. And I mean, it's straight up 99.9% land ratio. So, the casting accuracy, you have to get adjusted to the slowness of the glass. If you're trying to skip a bladed jig reel, but here's what happens. You adapt to the rod, and you will learn the rod setup, and you'll adapt to it. And you're as good as you are with the rod now, you'll be that good with that rod, but you may also learn some things.
Yeah.
So don't count it out if you haven't ever tried it. Because it's pretty good. Yeah. It's a pretty good deal. And there's, like anything, there's carbon rods that are built to flex like the glass rods now in chatterbait fishing. G. Loomis has them. St. Croix has them. Cash and Rods builds one. Daiwa has one in their Elite series, which is a blend of graphite and glass. So
that goes to tell you and show you that there is something
to it.
Action. There's definitely something to that action.
Something to it. So, I mean, we started out talking about an evergreen combat stick, and we morphed off into a all-out chatterbait rod conversation, which I don't know about you guys, but that's one of the things I like about this show. I mean, if you guys have comments, positive, negative, let us have them. But we don't really script these things out we got a basic outline. You know, this thing's got to be like free flowing organic. That's how you become, you know,
Flying by the seat of
it's
our
better.
pants.
It's more better.
More better.
More better.
What else you got new there, George?
What do I have new?
Yeah.
Jesus, God almighty. How about the latest and the greatest? And I mean, this bad boy came in today, like 3 hours ago.
Yeah.
You can't get any newer.
Yeah.
The new. And I would ask you for a drum roll, but you probably have to hit 6 buttons.
Yeah, here you go.
You know, you could label those. I can't even really say you're a producer because you're just.
All right, here you go. And the winner.
Boom! Chakalaka. The new Respect Series color just got here. We have.
Turn that a little bit, cattywampus, so you get the somehow to get that there, right there. Look at that. Look at that right there. Those stripes.
So we got the orange belly. We got the metallic bars. We got the translucent with the real translucent, like chartreuse shad streak. We got the purple back. I mean, this baby has got it going on. This is called IL Mirage.
Yeah.
So the Respect Series color for
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful color.
now
It's going to go
the newest
really fast.
is IL Mirage. We have it in 110. Okay. And we, of course, have it in 110 Junior. And this color is just, I mean, it's freaking awesome. Whoever came up with this color, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's got to be a creative genius. This thing, you know, you got the translucent.
Yeah, I like
right?
the bars.
You got the red eyes. You got those metallic, like, you know, this could be a perch bait. This could be a great bluegill style bait, a variety of like different bait fish. It's going to have a little flash. It's going to be a good clear water day. It's going to be a good cloudy day. You got the orange belly for the perch and the bluegill. I mean, this thing is just money. I'd be liking it.
That's right, Doug. Take my money. That's what it's called.
So we got a bunch of those in today. You'll have to call now. We don't put those on the website because they don't last very long. And we
don't do it.
It's once and done. Okay. So give us a holler on the old phone tomorrow. And we will get a couple of them out the door for you. Respect Series.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. It's kind of fun getting those in about every 6 weeks or so.
Yeah.
You know? Okay. So moving right along, we got some new hats from G. Loomis. There's a bunch of them. There's probably like, I don't know, 6 or 7 different models. There's actually a nice knit hat back there behind you there, Nick. Is there a knit hat back there? So we got I just picked a couple of them that are kind of cool. The ones I like: mesh back, trucker, snapback.
I don't think so, Nick.
Got the gray with the black. Good looking hat. There's some knit also, like some knit hats.
Yeah, I don't know where they're at.
They're around here somewhere.
Yeah.
We got some round patches. You know, round patches is the new thing. You know, there's trends in hats, right? And the round patch hat is the new trend. Again, snapback trucker. Okay, for those of you who don't know the hat lingo. Okay. Trucker is a mesh back hat, snapback, closure, mid-rise. Okay, mid-rise, not a tall crown, not unstructured. These are all mid-rise, kind of like the most popular style of hat. That's a good-looking hat right there. And then another one I picked out is the olive and black. I picked out all my favorite colors to show you.
Yeah.
Olive and black. So there's a whole bunch of them. I think there's about 6 or 7 of them. Yeah, here's the knit hat. the toboggan, the toque. This is the toque. You ever hear it called a toque, Nick? You can branch out, brother. The toque, you can branch out, okay? It's not, different cultures. That's her toque.
Beautiful.
Okay, so we got that.
What's up, BK Lovelace?
What do you think of that, Nick? The toque.
I like it. A little something for
you never
everybody.
heard that before, huh?
I never did.
Really?
No.
Well,
hey, every time I come here, George, I learn something new too.
Consider your horizons broadened, bro.
That's right.
With talk of the toque. Yeah, so check them out. There's a bunch of them loaded up on the website. Next week we're going to do next week we don't have next week we have a show. Next week we're going to do the Shimano hats because they did a whole series of hats and they're pretty cool too. And they have a toque.
Love me a toque.
I knit. So that's pretty much what I got for you in the tackle talk section.
Well, that was awesome. I love always talking tackle. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Take a minute for you right now, and if you would, appreciate everybody stopping in and watching Tackle Shop Live. My name is Mike Acord. This is George Acord, and that's cameraman Nick that you hear talking behind the camera. We appreciate you guys so much. If you would, just hit your like and share button and comment on our social media, and that would help us out a lot and keep us doing this show. So whatever you guys can do to help us out, man, that would be great.
We need that.
We need it. We need it very much. So
we need that.
All right.
It only takes a second too.
It's cold out there, Nick.
It is.
It's cold. I was just out. It's cold. I think it dropped 20 degrees since you got here. It's threatening some weather for the weekend, and it's winter time, but we still like to go fishing. So what we do is we do a few different things that we want to talk to you about here in our topic of the night, and that is fishing the winter and presenting the baits and rigging and stuff, the tips and tricks that we use during the winter months for the next several months for us to catch those fish in that cold water that you're going to run into. I mean, last week was just a freak thing that happened. We had 55-degree temperatures here, and the water warmed all the way up to 46 degrees, at least for our river. And the fish went absolutely bonkers. And they were just, it wasn't normal winter fishing. It was more like spring fishing because crankbaits and chatterbaits and jerk baits and all that kind of stuff was just killing them, you know? So, but normally it's not like that. Normally you're fishing, you know, a warming trend from 34, 33 degree water temperature up to like 34, 35, 36. And those fish are cold, but yet they still got to eat. And that's the thing that about winter fishing is, I think that a lot of guys don't understand is fish have to eat. They have to eat through the winter. They can't just go 4 months without eating. They have to eat. They'll eat in different ways, but they have to eat. So our job is to present a bait to them and to go fishing when they're feeding, and present a bait that they want to eat. So that's what we have to do as fishermen, is kind of match what they're looking for and put a bait in front of them to catch them. And we're not going to talk about where to go, the kind of water to look for. We're not going to get into all that, but there is some things that George and I do that that help us, you know, in those extreme conditions. And we're going to go over some of those right now.
So quick question for you, Mike.
Yeah.
You know, and George, when you do have a trend like last week, why does that spark the fish to do what they did, to want to just attack everything?
Well, I mean, the big thing is that, you know, they're cold-blooded creatures. So, you know, you get that big warm day, it allows them to feed more aggressively. and not only that, but the bait gets real active. You know, the bait will get active in that water too. So the smallmouth get active, the bait gets active, and it just triggers that whole feeding frenzy. It just kind of trickles down through it, you know. But it's like you and I standing here, and it's 38 degrees outside, and we wake up the next day, and it's, you know, by noontime it's 60,
Ready to go.
and we're ready to jump, you know, tear somebody up, you know. We're ready to, you know, where's it? Let's go right now. So that's it's kind of like the same thing with smallmouth, I mean, and largemouth. They're cold-blooded, so they get that energy. They know they have to eat. Their metabolism starts running, and the bait fish are flicking around more, and it's like and it's triggering that feeding frenzy, and then you have that, you know. And so that's what you look for in the wintertime, is that warming style or trend.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, and it doesn't matter from where you're from. Like, you know, here, you know, cold is 20s and 30s. In the southeast, cold is in the 40s and the 30s. You know, up north they can't really bass fish too much because the water's hard.
Yeah, everything freezes.
But the concept is the same no matter where you're at. Whether you're ice fishing, whether you're in our latitude, which, you know, take that across the country, it's the same latitude. Or if you're farther south, the fish, you know, react the same irregardless of what the number of the actual temperature is. And what I mean by that is, you know, kind of to your point or your question, you know, when you get multiple days of improving, and in the case of last week, you know, like really mild weather, you know, everything in nature just goes ballistic, right? You know, you're driving to the river in the morning or the lake, and your deer are all over the place. You know, you're coming home from work at night, and there's deer everywhere. You know, there's just everything is active. And you know, the fish, now there are bite windows, and they tend to be a little more pronounced in the winter. You know, we've talked about on here before, it's kind of a weird thing, but there's an early morning bite window in the winter almost everywhere we go.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a lull, and then there's a midday, you know, afternoon, just crazy bite. And there's also a right before dark bite. So, you know, the timing of those is going to vary greatly. They're not necessarily locked into that, but, you know, the opposite of that is what just happened. So we had all that nice weather. Everybody was happy. And then we got slammed with a couple pretty cold nights, and you know, the temperatures and the water temperatures dropped. That's the hard situation in winter fishing. Cold fronts are more magnified spring, winter, and fall. Cold fronts are less of an issue in the summer, obviously.
Yeah.
But in the winter, they are big time. Bob Austin just came on, SFT 3-day rule. Bob, I know you've heard it 1,000 times from us, you know, the 3-day rule. And you can chisel it and granite. It's the third day will be good.
Yeah.
The third day will always be good. It might not be all day, but you'll have a bite that goes on that third day. I don't care if you're fishing in a river. I don't care if you're tidal. I don't care if you're on a natural lake. I don't care if you're on a reservoir. It's going to happen.
Yeah. Important thing is that bite window, you know, that little spur up, you know, might only be 20 minutes.
Recognize it.
But that may be 2-3 times during the day, you know. And George and I still can't figure out why they bite like that in the morning. I mean, they have a stupid bite thing first thing in the morning. You know, maybe it's pressure, maybe it's the freshness of the day or what. I don't know, man. It's crazy. Water's freezing cold. I'm freezing cold. I can't feel my hands, and they're biting right away when you get there. So it's pretty cool that way. So some of the things that, you know, you want to think about is in the cold water, not so much in those that stuff we had last week, but in the real true winter of cold water is being able to present certain baits
when the shoe falls, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And different things happen, the water becomes real clear in the winter. And so bait selection becomes a little different. But some of the tricks that I use for my fishing is because of the cold water, you have to slow down. You have to really, really slow down, and you have to paint the rocks, so to speak. You hear guys talk about that all the time. Getting their baits down on the bottom, paint it real tight to the bottom and real slow. And it's frustrating because you get hung up a lot. You'll get hung up in the sticks and twigs and the rocks and the ledges and all that kind of stuff. So one of the tricks that I do, not only all the time, but mostly in the wintertime, is I use weedless style heads. And what I mean by that, it's a wire guard or a brush guard or a wire that covers my point up and helps keep that hook point from grabbing on anything. I know I'm going to get hung up with the jig head, but I can pop that out with the bow and arrow slingshot. But the hook is what you got to worry about, the hook point. So that's all we want to do is protect that hook point so it doesn't dig into a rock and catch onto a stick or a log. So we use it in various ways. Here's a Ned rig that we definitely use with the weed guard. You can see that we split them apart and make it nice. And that just protects that point so that we can cast this thing out, let it hit the bottom, and paint those rocks just by picking up with the rod tip and just barely moving that thing along. And yes, you're going to get hung up with the head, so you can do the bow and arrow thing, right? Everybody kind of knows how to do that. That really works well. And you can just kind of fish that thing. And it's real important to paint those rocks down through there and have this bait just crawl and real slow, a little bit slower than the current, or just if you're in a lake or whatever, just dragging it real slow on the bottom and maybe letting it set there in one spot for a second and shaking it real nice and easy, slow shakes, a little shimmer almost. But that weed guard is going to help you do that without going through 3,000 baits and being thoroughly frustrated. It's slow, it's methodical, and it allows you to put the bait in front of their heads. And I seen on there a guy was, I'm sorry if I missed your name, was asking about, was saying about, getting a bait and hitting them between the eyes with it. Well, it's kind of like that. You want to be able to hit them between the eyes. And then the other question that there was why does a tube work so well when the crayfish are all buried up in the wintertime? Well, the tube also represents your small minnows.
Really well, by the way.
Yeah, really well. Your small minnow baits. And that's where color comes in. You want to match the color and mess around with the colors for your body of water, but put a little minnow color in them, like the smokes, adding some smoke to it. This is a great tube that we use. And this is a green pumpkin with purple flake. And then it has that smoke purple tail. So it gives you that bait fish kind of look to it. We might use all smoke. We might use, a straight green pumpkin if the water's a little bit dirty, but we'll get that thing down there and it's going to be a minnow or a shad presentation. And those weedless heads are really going to help you paint those rocks without getting frustrated and hung up all the time. And I'm telling you, it's probably one of the biggest things that we do, George and I, and it allows us to fish a lot slower than a lot of guys can.
Well, it's old hat now, but we evolved into Ned rig fishing. In the winter, it took over for Mike and I. Back in the day, we used to fish spade-tail grubs. The man stingray grub in the winter, and it was deadly.
Yeah.
We fished hair jigs. Deadly. But the Ned rig comes along and the various versions of it, the TRD tube, the TRD hogs, and other varieties of it. Those are my three.
Yeah.
When it's cold in the wintertime, right? And it's cold and it drops off and the bite gets tough and you're trying to catch 5 or 6 fish and call it a successful day. You know, all forms of Ned rigging are critical, and being able to drag that bait and put that bait, you know, in the places where those fish are, be it wood, you know, you might be fishing tree tops that are deep, brush piles, rock with all the crevices. Like Mike says, you need that weed guard. And it's just, I mean, it's money. It's cold water money. So rig up your Ned style rod. For that, you're going to want to downsize your line. Okay. I know you might be fishing some cover. You know, I fish a lot of like marinas in the winter. Because they're on tidal waters, they tend to be a little off current. You know, they have break walls. They have, they're located in deeper water, off current areas. They're natural winter havens. And, you know, not only are the bass drawn to them for those reasons, but so are the bait. So, you know, you're in there, you're fishing a lot of wood cover, that weedless head comes into play. You don't want to be getting snagged up.
Yeah.
Right, Mike?
Oh, absolutely. You know, and you know, like you kind of touched it on it. You know, one of the things that goes along with it is, you know, is your line size. Your line size will help you keep in touch with that bait a little bit better. It gives you more of a straight line to your bait. This is a time of year where 6-pound test is quite often used, you know, to get that thinner diameter, that better fall, that better control your bait. That 6-pound test will give you that feel, that sensitivity, and that straight line to your bait. So there's no bend in your line, or as bad of a bend in your line as an 8-pound or 10-pound test line that a lot of guys will throw when the water's warm. So, you know, we do definitely switch up to a lot of 6-pound tests this time of year. We have our winter rigs that we rig up, and that's our rods that we're gonna be using, and definitely mix in a lot of 6-pound tests. In that scenario.
Well, when you get in the extreme cold in the clear water, and the bite's tough, you'll be amazed at what'll happen. If you're fishing 8, and you're around fish and it's a tough day, drop back to 6 and see what happens.
Yeah,
a lot of those fish will start eating. The baits react different. Listen, if it's deeper water, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, you get a good 6-pound fluorocarbon. Now, I'll tell you, Mike, I know you're going to echo this because we fish together all the time. But you take like a Blue Label Seaguar material in 6. There's nothing fragile about that.
No, tough.
You take a Tatsu in 6.
Yeah,
that stuff is brutal. You take the High Seas 100%,
man.
And I'll tell you another line that's absolutely deadly in those circumstances: the 5 and 7 FC Sniper.
Yeah, the
7-pound Daiwa fluorocarbon. So the point is, instead of naming off every fluorocarbon ever manufactured, you get in that 6-pound range.
They're tough.
You don't have to be like, you don't have to be
all worried about
playing around with it.
No.
You know, another thing with that, George, when you're changing that 8 to 10 or 8 to 6 pound or whatever, and you're retying that leader, make sure you keep your hands warm, because that sucks.
Yeah. When you know, it's kind of funny when you go from a heavy line to a light line. You know, we wind a stupid amount of line in here. I mean, we wind. Matt, I think we wind enough line to go like from here to the moon and back again like 6 times. And it's so funny, you know, like we're always winding, you know, 10 to 20. And then trout season comes around. We start winding 4-pound test, and you're like, I can't tie the knots because I can't feel the line. Takes a couple days to get used to it. But, you know, that's just getting used to that diameter.
Matthew Weimer, you would switch lines if you could find spare spools. Well,
Well, or just don't catch fish then.
Well, the thing about it is
Save some money.
all you need to do is change 50 yards. Just strip off 50 yards of line, and then just tie your knot and spool 50 yards of 6 on top.
I'll do you even better than that. Fill your reels with braid and put a 15-foot leader on.
Well, you can definitely do that. Now there's
no spool needed.
Now I will tell you this, George. I will go this far to say that there's an absolute difference of straight fluorocarbon and braid to fluoro leader in feel in the wintertime. I'm going to go there.
Okay, well, you might be on the peace pipe. I'm not sure what's going on there.
Explain yourself.
You're talking like
no, honestly,
you're talking some crazy. I'm up. You know me. I love a spool of fluorocarbon as much as the next guy.
I don't know if it's the really super cold water, the 33, 34, 35, 36, that area in there that the braid to me just doesn't have the feel as a straight fluorocarbon to my reel.
I wonder if it has something to do for you, Mike, that braid might freeze faster. So if you're dealing with a really cold day,
yeah.
But yeah,
no, I don't think it's. I don't know if it's the light bait, Nick. That real light bait, because that's not only are we throwing these weedless jig heads, but we're trying to go as light as possible to get that perfect, slow, kind of methodical, but yet not digging the rocks. You know what I mean? You don't want to dig the bottom. You want to just scuff it and just barely move it. There's a difference. And I'm telling you this, there's a major difference between digging the rocks and bottom and scuffing and little lighter, as light as possible to still feel the bottom, right? And that's why I whoop up on George all the time.
I'm not definitely not disagreeing with you because I'm telling you, I like, I always keep a couple.
We go light.
I keep a couple straight fluoro and the feel is awesome.
I just feel like
but you are definitely
I'm on the edge, but I honestly, I remember at one time in my fishing,
I'm not disagreeing with you.
No, I know.
Because you look at my if I got 3 spinning rods laying on the front deck of the boat, at least one of them is straight fluoro.
Well, how's this one go for you? How about my hair jig rod?
Oh, God almighty. Don't even talk about this in public.
Now, when you ever
First of all, you haven't
seen the movie Excalibur?
You haven't even
That's what my hair jig rod is. It's Excalibur. I'm pulling it out of the rock. Excalibur. And it is a 6-foot.
Oh my God.
SJR 722 GLX with 6-pound fluorocarbon straight line.
Yeah.
And I can throw a 16th and an 1/8 ounce hair jig. And
you live on an 1/8.
And absolutely, feel everything with that.
It's pretty impressive.
And, for years, that was the only hair. And when I went hair jig fishing, I brought that with. That was the rod that came with us.
It's pretty damn impressive.
I only broke it out in the wintertime. I don't fish it any other time than in the winter.
You know what? I fish a hair jig on, Nick. I have a 710.
Same.
I have a 710 Victory.
Yeah, you can't feel shit with that
hair jig.
You can't feel shit with that thing. If you throw it out, you don't feel nothing. It's just like this big giant thing out there. It's like,
what's funny about that conversation, though, which is what's cool about fishing. There's all kinds of ways.
Yeah.
But it really comes down to confidence.
Yeah.
If your deal is straight fluoro, hey, if that's what you think you're going to catch fish on, go for it. The other way.
Yeah.
It's
I believe wholeheartedly in it.
In the vein of catching fish, the hair jig, it's famous. Okay. It's if you're not proficient with a hair jig in cold water, then you need to do that. You can't be all in on winter fishing if you haven't mastered the hair jig. You can fish the hair jig straight, just a tie on an 1/8 ounce black hair jig. If you've never tried them before, buy one color, buy a black hair jig.
Yeah.
Now, some of the things that I've found that in really rough conditions, which is what this show's kind of hinging on. One of the things I found with the hair jig, you can modernize your hair jig. One of the things I found with the hair jig, and Michael backed me up on this, and there's a gentleman that works here at the shop whose name is Mike Poole. I'm sure those of you who have been around for a while have known him because he's been here for
many years,
forever. He has converted his hair jig over to putting a flatworm on it. He bites back a flatworm, and it's more so for the scent, because max scent in cold water is very effective.
Yeah.
In largemouth situations in the winter, I've had some remarkable bites back in the day before my arsenal of tackle expanded with a small craw on a hair jig.
Oh yeah.
Caught some, when you catch a 5.5 and 6 pound largemouth on an 1/8 ounce hair jig on a spinning rod, in 38-degree water, it's pretty freaking special. Now Mike does have something here that he wants to add to the conversation on these finesse baits.
Yeah.
Be it a tube, be it a TRD, be it a hair jig, especially a hair jig.
Yeah.
And when it's really gnarly, I'm talking 32, 33-degree water, 34-degree water, wind's cracking, cold front just came through. You're like, why? You're questioning your sanity at this point.
Well,
Mike, what is the difference maker?
It's not even that. It's kind of like all the time when that water's when you're fishing that, you just.
Yeah, but it really shines in those conditions.
When it's tough, it really
and it makes a difference.
It really does. But this is an absolute must for wintertime fishing in those conditions, and that's scent. Putting scent on your bait. I can't tell you how many times I've seen it.
It's definitely,
like there's times where I hit the water. There'll be times where I hit the water and I have to drive the boat up to the spot and my hands are frozen and I'll be sitting there with my hands in my pocket, and George will get his bait and do it all up, and throw it out there. And then I'll finally warm up a little bit and get my bait, and I don't even, I just throw it in the water just to stick my hand in my pocket, just to have a line in the water. And I don't take the time to put the scent on. And all of a sudden he's going, ooh, there's one, Mike. Look, they are, they're here. And then throw it out again, ooh, hey, there's another one. And,
reminds me of that scene from the movie Cape Fear.
And I'll just be sitting there, and then my hands will warm up and I'll take my bait and oh yeah, I forgot to put it on. And I would actually paint your bait with get a little of that stuff on there, throw it out there. And within a couple casts, you're catching fish. I've seen it happen like that, where it makes that. And I've seen it happen so many times. And now we're carrying a couple different smells. The two that we carry is the Bass Feast, and our number one is the crawfish anise. And this one we use the most of. Is that right?
Yeah.
Anise, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't want to go there.
Yeah.
Because we have other words for it, but
we've also had some pretty phenomenal results with the and don't ask me how this works, but what's the scentless one that we use? The bait fuel.
Oh, the bait fuel.
I don't know how a scent that doesn't have a scent works, but it does.
It does, yeah, no doubt about it. And then our old time favorite, don't go anywhere without it, is Bang. And that's nice because you can just kind of hold your bait up.
And you want to get the combo because it has the
real oils in
anise.
Yeah.
Definitely, Mike. I'm glad you added that to conversation because
every little bit helps when you're fishing in these conditions.
On these tough days, on these tough cold front days in the winter.
And honestly,
it's a game changer.
Honestly, the reason I brought it up is, scent is one of those things where guys are like,
well, let's face it. It's not usually
crap,
it's not usually measurable.
Yeah.
The success is not usually measurable. There are those days, one of the weirdest things that happened to Mike and I is when they brought out the bait fuel, immediately 2 days in a row, back to back, the first 2 times ever using it, it was measurable.
Yeah.
And you see it. You've all seen it. You've all witnessed it.
Yeah.
The big deal is in the cold water.
That's where
it tends to
That's a must.
rise up. What do you think, cameraman Nick?
Well, on the scent deal, I mean, what sold me on scent, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I remember to put scent on all the time.
Yeah.
Because we get so like in the groove of what we're doing.
Chucking and whining.
I was on a couple pros boats in big tournaments where their time was everything to them. And I literally seen them take the time to put scent on their baits. And I'm thinking, you're not here to impress me.
Yeah.
You're here to catch fish. You wouldn't be doing that if you didn't think it was going to put the odds in your favor in some way.
Well, there was a whole entire company built on scent. Berkeley Power Bait,
right,
was built on scent. I mean, it's such a huge thing that they stick it in all these scents and all these baits, and they spend millions and millions and billions of dollars on, millions of dollars on research and all the different types of triggers and things that trigger fish. And these things aren't just put out there. They're thought up, and they're tested, and they're there for a reason. But I think that in the summertime, when you're just, when it's water's hot and the fish are feeding like crazy, and there's a lot of times where you just don't have to do it. You don't have to. I mean, it's always good to do it, but it's just a lot of times where you don't have to do it. But in the winter,
it's a game changer.
Like every 10, 15 minutes, you stop and you repaint your stuff up, and you get it back out there, and it's
a game changer.
It's absolutely a game changer. So,
and even if it's not a game changer, there's nothing negative to it.
It's not going to hurt you.
It's only going to help you. And you're out there. Listen, the cold front has come in. The party's freaking over. You're trying to catch a few fish. Maybe you're fishing a little winter league derby with with your buddies, or maybe you and your buddy in the boat are having a little heads up, little Bubba scale tournament. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whatever. But you want to get those bites, right?
Yeah. Now, George,
it helps.
Here's my question for you guys. With the baits that you went over already, so we did what? A tube? We did a TRD.
All kinds of Ned rig.
We did hair jig. Was there another one?
So far, that's what we've been.
So with those three, if either one of you are going out tomorrow, which one of them are your first choice out of those three? Your confidence.
Well, I mean, it depends where I'm going. So if I'm going to go, like I like to spend a lot of time in the winter in either a tidal water environment or smallmouth fishing on my favorite river in the whole world, which is the Susquehanna. On the Susquehanna with a tough bite like this, my first cast tomorrow morning when it's tough will be with out of the three we talked to, will be a TRD. Okay, my TRD head will have a TRD tube on it. Okay, if I'm largemouthing in my tidal waters, out of those three now, I'm also going to do the TRD, but I'm going to do the TRD, the straight TRD. It's called a TRD, right?
Yeah, that's called TRD. The other thing's called.
I call everything TRD.
TRD tube.
If it's made by Z-Man and it goes on that little jig head, I call it a TRD. So if you're wanting to know what I'm catching them on, really, you're gonna have to really drill down, because everything's a TRD.
Yeah, stupid little.
It's in a blue bag. It's TRD.
What say you, Mike?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna probably do the same thing. But if I'm fishing with George, I'll let him throw that. But here's the thing. Wintertime fishing, you never go out by yourself. You always go with somebody. So, and that's just for safety. But also, it's nice because he could pick up the Ned rig and throw the Ned rig out there, and then I could pick up a 2.5-inch tube, and I could throw that little small 2.5-inch tube out there, and he might throw the tube, then I might go right to the Ned rig, or vice versa. However it goes, then we're going to get a couple baits out there and try those baits, because honestly, you have to cycle through your baits in the wintertime. You have to go through a cycle, and in the morning you should do it pretty quickly to find out what they're biting, because there's that bite in the morning. So you need to hit the Ned rig, hit the tube, and then get into the some of the other baits that we're throwing, and get that going, and then you'll figure out what they're biting, or maybe change a color or two in those two baits just real quick, because every day is different. Every single day is different. Every event that you go out to, something might change. The water temperature might drop a half a degree, or it might rise a certain 3 inches because the reservoir opened up, or the tide was held back, or whatever. Something always changes. So, it's very important to work through your succession of baits. We didn't talk about all the baits. We were doing tricks. We would do a swim bait too. We would do a Kitech.
Oh, I got a couple.
We would do a Kitech 4-inch swing impact.
Oh no, I know what you guys were. I just wanted to kind of see what you do with them. Really,
at this point.
Yeah, at those finesse.
Oh yeah,
points,
I got some.
We're locked in on TRD.
I got some cold weather, some cold water
2.5-inch tubes.
money here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
let me bust out a couple, Mike. So, I never rule out some form of power fishing. Never. I'm always going to start off fishing a jerk bait. Okay. Might be and probably will be, something a little more standard, like a Vision 110. But my sneaky bait for really nasty winter conditions is a Spro McRip. And I don't really even throw this bait other than those conditions. I throw this bait in the winter. I throw this bait in cold water. I throw this bait on no more than 10-pound line, a lot of times on 8. And I like to pull this bait down and just let it sit in front of fish. Now, there's other baits, since I got on this bait years ago, and other baits have come along. I'm a sucker for a deep lip jerk bait. So, a lot of times I'll jump on the newest trend, like when the 110 Junior +1 came out. In my mind, I saw my success with this bait, and I went there. And that is a damn fine cold weather jerk bait. Okay. And there's other examples of where that's happened, but this bad boy right here, and the only other bait I would put for those really cold conditions, the only other bait I'd put in this class is the 110 Junior +1. But this bad boy right here, you can jerk it down, you can pull it down. One of the things I like to do, if the fish are deeper, maybe 8 to 12 foot, 15 foot of water, and they're on the bottom or close to it, one of the things I like to do is put a suspend dot on this so that it actually sinks a little slow. Like, if it's perfectly suspended, I'll add a little weight to it so that when it's down there, it just sinks a little bit. Mike and I learned this trick years ago in 33 or 4 degree water in a severe cold front with a cracked Vision 110 that Mike was fishing that had taken on some water. And he kept bringing leaves up with a 110 and 15 foot of water. I'm like, there ain't no way you're getting that bait down there.
I was catching fish too.
He was catching giant fish
until it got too much water in it, and it was just like a rock sticking right to the
bottom. So, since then we've learned that a slow sinking jerk bait, and I don't know if you guys remember when the Shadow Wrap came out from Rapala, and then the Shadow Wrap Shad came out. Because Rapala, when they brought the Shadow Wrap out, it was like, well received. And then the Shadow Wrap was tuned to very slowly rise. You in most situations, you'd have to wait that a little bit to get it to suspend perfectly. The Shadow Wrap Shad is tuned to slowly sink. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to tell you, they were ahead of the curve on this trend. Now Strike King now has a KVD Deep 300 jerkbait that slowly sinks. It's probably going to be pretty obscure.
The thing about it is, whether you go down to the tidal water and not so much in the tidal water, but in most places, when you're scanning around with your forward facing, you're not going to see much in wintertime. They're sucked right. They're sucked to the bottom. You know,
especially on a cold front.
You see them like you reel them up, and they have those spots on their bellies. That's from sitting in the mud.
They got mud in their scale and in the grain. You take the next time you're out in really cold weather, and this could be pre-spawn too.
Yeah.
Mike and I have a spot on the river we fish. It's a red clay bank.
Yeah.
Reminds you of being down in North Carolina on a red clay point.
Yeah.
There's one little stretch of red clay bank, and we'll pick these fish off on a cold front in late March. Big giant pre-spawners that want to move up. And every scale on their belly is outlined in red clay mud.
Yep.
It's like the coolest thing in the world because they're laying on the bottom.
Yeah, you'll go down there and you can use your forward facing image, and you're going to be looking like there's nothing there. So what George is saying with those baits, you know, and you know, I use the same thing, but I use the Vision 110 +1 a lot right there, and then also the Jackal Re-Range 110 with the deep lip, and these
MD.
And these are all baits that'll get real close to the bottom. You know, like within 6-8 inches, 10 inches of the bottom, or you're ticking off the bottom, but you're just, when you jerk it down, you just let it sit there. And it's important to have the bait balanced enough that it just sets right in front of their face, and you just leave it there and you count till, 15, 20, and then you to maybe move it 3-4 inches and just let it sit there. And the cast takes forever. It's like
mega dead sticking.
It's like it's dead sticking like you never did before. And but you got to have these lips, and you got to match your baits to what you're doing to get down within 3 or 4 inches of the bottom, or even ticking the bottom every now and again. So big lips, they make a +2.
Well, you know what I like.
They make they make bigger, deeper diving lips for whatever situation you guys are in.
And suspend dots.
So use suspend dots to make your bait get down to where you want it to get down. So very, very important what George is saying about those baits. But the reason for it is they just lay in the mud, man. They just lay down there and
they do
hang out until the next warming trend, or unless something comes by, they can just suck it in without exerting anything.
When I got news for you, that McRip 85.
Yeah.
That sucker's a Hoover vacuum cleaner, man. If you got the patience to fish it.
Yeah.
Now, Mike, I've got some great, interesting comments here, and there's a couple things I want to say that comes along with what you're saying. First of all, we have a bunch of new listeners on tonight, and they are on their game.
Oh, yeah, they are.
This Ryan Dahl guy from Ohio is a straight bass assassin. Bob Austin's saying, wasn't there a jerkbait you could inject water in? Bob Austin, you're old school, bro, because it was a Norman that had a little plug in it, and you could take it out and put a little water in it.
Yeah.
And it was a fairly big size jerkbait.
That was the only problem with it. It was like
a 130.
Yeah, it was.
That's because Rick Klum was involved with the project, and he doesn't fish anything under 130.
Yeah.
But yeah, you guys, blade bait, the answers that I'm seeing, obviously our audience tonight is heavily got a high functioning level of cold water fishing.
Yeah.
So, Mike and I are feeling the pressure because some of our comments, like 6-foot rods and whatnot are controversial. And, we're feeling the pressure because you guys are on your game.
That's what it's all about. Hey, you guys both brought up suspend dots. Do you guys have a rule of thumb with where you like to place suspend dots on your jerkbait?
It's a great question, isn't it?
That is a great question. And we've always put them in the front portion of the bait on, in front of the front hook, whether you have a 3-hook or a 2-hook. It's always up in this section here, because if anything, you want it to kind of nose down a little bit like that when your bait's sitting still. So we always stack them right in here, and you can stack them right on top of each other,
Generally, one will do it.
Yeah, generally one will do it. With the nowadays, I mean, back in the day, we used strips.
Back in the day, our baits weren't.
Yeah,
they weren't dialed in.
There was times where we had to take 2 strips and put them on there, man, just to get them to kind of suspend.
Mike and I used to fish a rogue like most of you did, and the suspending rogue, You needed some lead products to get that suspending rogue down there, man.
Yeah, and then you get one that then out of like 1 out of 10 would suspend perfectly. You know, it was craziest.
And you had to buy those in high volume because you went through a lot of them.
We went through packs of those things. You know, sometimes
to get it right.
Sometimes they'd pull off. Sometimes you go out and one would be all perfectly balanced. And you go out like 3 weeks later and you throw it out and something changed. The water changed and it sank too fast, and then you had to peel some off.
And you know what's funny? You talk about the Rogue. Once you got one perfect, you didn't mess with that one anymore.
No,
You're like, okay, that one's for that.
Yeah.
This one's different.
Yeah.
Well,
I love
if you were disciplined.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
You're not saying Mike messed with things.
I mean, you get out there and when it isn't doing what you want it to do, you start peeling stuff off and sticking more on. And
I had the unicorn Rogue.
Then he starts yelling.
I had the killer Rogue.
That's the best Rogue. And you're messing with.
And I told Mike to never ever fish it unless it was a tournament. He couldn't take it.
Couldn't take it.
He jacked it up. Anyways,
You didn't lose it, did you?
No. I bent all the hooks up on it.
Along with some of the things we're talking about, I had a couple notes so far. I realize we have to wrap up here in a few minutes, and we still got a little bit of tournament talk, but we talked about the various Ned rig baits, right? And I want to emphasize for the crystal clear and the cold and the tough conditions, I want to emphasize some form of smoke. Okay, smoke plays in those circumstances. Now, I'm really going to take it further. And this is going to sound like George is just freaking making stuff up. But
like the
I'm not.
Go ahead.
I'm not making anything up.
Drop some knowledge bombs.
This is all great, tremendous knowledge. I mean, of the highest level. The other color that is phenomenal in super cold water is straight black. Or black with red metal. Or black with red metal flake.
Black is so good.
So you got smoke and black, and that is the opposite ends of the color spectrum, but it's going to be one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
More often than not, in a tough bite, winter situation, mark it down, take a Sharpie, write it on a piece of tape, put it in your boat so you don't forget. I'm telling you right now, that is money in the winter. In the Ned Rig products, you take a Yoga Pants TRD, or my favorite, which is a TRD hog, which I think fishes only good in cold water. I mean, it's the best cold water bait there is from TRD, from Z-Man. So keep that in mind. I had a little note here as he was talking. I'm like, that's great stuff. I'm going to add this color thing in there.
And while you're saying that, you might as well say this: that the 2.5-inch tube that is off the charts is simple green pumpkin and straight smoke purple. Smoke purple in the wintertime is just in a 2.5-inch, real finesse 2.5-inch is dynamite. And then the opposite spectrum of that is a straight green pumpkin or a little 2.5-inch black and red tube.
Killer.
Those two. So
killer.
You can do that same thing with the tube also.
Don Roeder says straight black. Straight black's hard to come by in a tube. So my trick on that, Don, and unless you have a time machine, this really isn't going to help you. I actually have bags of black red metal flake tubes that I've hidden in the bottom of my tube bag so that I don't ever get to them. Because when they get to be about 3 or 4 years old, the red dissolves and they become straight black.
Yeah.
So, you might want to start marinating a few right now, Don. You know what I'm saying? So in the getting back on the conversation of more or less power fishing, I talked about the secret weapon, the McRip 85. Okay. Now, those of you who have watched the show for a long time know brother likes to yo-yo a trap. Okay. My all-time greatest trap for yo-yoing is the Spro Aruku. And what's nice about this bait in cold water is you control the pace. It's going to fall like this, What I like about it is it stands on its nose on the bottom. Okay, so this is the posture on the bottom. And then you can bring it up, and I don't rip it. I bring it up, and I let it fall again. So it's a slow pace, subtle, not a real violent maneuver. Spro's got, they got a lot going for them. They got the right posture on the bottom. Nose down is critical. They have the best colors. They have Gami hooks out of the box. I mean, these things are bust them out, tie them on. We talk about this trap all the time. We are not sponsored by Spro at all. We pay for all of our Spro baits. They don't give us anything.
Nobody gives us anything.
Nothing. Love that bait. Have a whole box full of them. But because of our boy GDP, who, he's our guy, and we think the world of him, and he turned us on to this bait years ago from Nomad, a couple years ago, not that year, many years ago. This is the original Swim Trex, not the Max.
Yeah.
Not the Max.
Yeah.
So if you look at your Nomads and your Nomad tapers from thick to thin, it's a yo-yo bait. It falls with a hunting action, and it does.
Mm-hmm.
This is no BS. These Australian guys are badass when it comes to designing baits. This freaking thing catches fish really good. And it's made to yo-yo. It doesn't wind it's not a good winding bait. You got to go to the Max, the Swim Trex Max. We're not talking about winding. We're talking about yo-yoing. This
Cold
bait
water.
shines in cold water.
Yep.
Straight up.
Yep.
So get yourself a couple of Vertrex or Swim Trex. I said it wrong. The Vertrex also yo-yo is good, but we're not talking about that. Get yourself some Swim Trex, not the Max, and get yourself some Arukus and go to the 5/8, not the 3/8.
Yeah.
Go to the 5/8, not the 3/8. Now, as I said before, and Mike knows this, I love me some tidal water winter fishing. It's time of the year to catch some of the biggest fish that you'll catch all year. I've seen so many 8s and 9s caught in the Chesapeake Bay in the winter, in Winter League. Caught a number of them myself. See pictures of them all the time. Had a guy in the shop today showing me pictures of them. It's a great big fish time of the year. It's a great number of big fish time of the year. It's just a great bite. But when you get a cold front come through, you got to get sneaky, okay? That is sneaky. This is sneaky, but, I mean, you know where I'm going. Blade bait.
Blade bait.
We've had blade bait
Can't
shows.
have this conversation without a blade bait.
Well, we've done blade bait shows.
Yeah.
Numerous.
Yeah.
We have blade bait commenters on here.
Yeah.
If you are not good with a blade bait, you need to get good with a blade bait. Now, a couple of our favorite blade baits. I mean, we're old school Silver Buddy guys. Okay, that's pretty much going to carry you. That'll carry you throughout most days.
Gold and silver.
Gold seems to work really well on largemouth, and silver seems to work really well on smallmouth, and silver seems to work really well on largemouth in clear water. But we also like this Jackal Keyburn. Comes with double hooks. So those of you who follow the show, you know we're big on cutting the leading treble off in a snaggy environment. So these come out of the box with double hooks, minimizes your snags. And they have a circuit board body. It's a totally different vibration. Very effective bait. Anyways, the blade bait is money. I'm going to suggest strongly that you fish it on a spinning rod.
Yeah.
I'm going to suggest that you don't rip it, but yet you pick it up enough to like activate it and feel that and then fall it on a semi-slack line and feel that and fall it. It's a precision bait. You can make precision casts with it. It's deadly.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So, George, when would you pick the blade bait over the trap?
Well, usually you'll find out in those cold front scenarios that the blade bait will outperform the trap. But if you go back to something that Mike said earlier, you kind of got to go through your progression, because there are days when they will just absolutely, when you catch one right away on your trap and it's sideways in their throat, that's a trap day. But I will be honest with you, on a cold front situation, a lot of times the blade bait will shine, especially in tidal water. Now, smallmouth fishing, river fishing, lake fishing, and it's cold situation, it can be very, very difficult to beat the blade bait, especially on a cold front situation.
Now, one of the other things that I mean, I'm not a blade fisherman, but I've fished with George, who's excellent at it, and I'm getting better at it. And I know people that are really good at it. And when it's really cold and the bite's real slow, when they're working that blade bait, they'll bring it up, like George said, nice and easy, just till you feel it, and then drop it down.
Semi-slack.
And then when it hits the bottom, they just let it lay there. They'll just let it lay there. And those, believe it or not, those smallies will come over and they'll just suck it right up off the bottom. And a lot of times, not like all the time, but there's a lot of bites, a lot more than you would think, that come with that bait just laying on the bottom. So it's like it's almost like dead sticking your jerk bait. It's just letting it sit there, and whatever it is, for whatever reason, a lot of guys will tell you that they'll come down and pick it up right off the bottom. So again, that slow, methodical, slow presentation, work through your progression.
And I'm a big believer in everything Mike said. I'm also, as I said, I'm a big believer in a spinning rod.
Yeah.
A lot of times on a blade bait, you're out of position when you realize that you have a fish on. You're up here, and with a spinning rod, you tend to keep your hand on the handle of the reel. And you can gobble that line up quickly and just kind of sweep, or you can sweep and gobble. I mean, you could make a great argument on the bait casting rod if you're not a blade bait guy. And some of the best blade bait guys that I ever fished with fish a bait casting rod. Like I said, you learn your technique that works best for you. But if you're not a good blade bait guy,
spinning rod makes it a lot easier,
and you want to make a huge argument for why you should use a bait caster, just remember the first part of my sentence. You're not a blade bait guy. I like a 7 foot, 7'2" at the most, medium power. I prefer anywhere. It's not that critical. I'm going to be honest with you. If you have a fast, that's great. If you have an extra fast, that's great. And then just spool your reel accordingly. I will say this, compared to what Mike was saying earlier, I do not really like the braid deleter for that as much. I'm much more focused on a straight fluoro spool.
Yeah.
Now, if I have to fish a heavier line, like some of the times in some of the tidal waters that we fish, there's an area on the Potomac that we fish in the winter that's kind of gnarly. And, you got to go up to a heavier line. If I got to go over 10 or 12, I'm going to a casting rod. But I hardly never have to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm telling you, get your blade bait game on. If you're in a snaggy environment, okay? And Mike told me to bring this up because we bring it up all the time, but it's often overlooked. If you're in a snaggy environment, let your blade bait hang, okay? And then take the forward-facing point. All right? So let it hang so it's hanging natural. If you upgrade your hooks on a Silver Buddy and put them on a split ring, once that's all said and done, let them hang. One hook's always going to face front on the front. You can leave the back full. One hook's always going to face front on the front. Cut that off. Now you have a double up here, and you can see how that's going to minimize your snags. If it's really, really bad, then I'll cut the back one off too. But usually, and I'm telling you, I have literally fished all day long with one blade bait. I've done it time and time again.
You just got to be real patient with it. That's the thing. And that's what I learned. And I've started having success with it because I've become a lot more patient and fishing it on the spinning rod.
Well, the other key to that is when you get snagged, and one of my biggest pet peeves, if I invite you fishing with me and you're just in a bad mood and you want to piss me off, every time you get snagged on the bottom or you get tight to the bottom, just start jerking on your rod, because you will infuriate me. And eventually I'm just going to lose my cool. Don't do that. Don't ever do that. Under any circumstance, never do that. If you are tight, don't jerk on it. Now you're snagged. Tight, snagged. Don't do that. When you're tight with a blade bait, more often than not, you can pop it, and the weight of that blade is centered on the belly of that blade. It knocks itself loose. If you can't, don't jerk on it. Troll your boat to the other side of it and just kind of shake it and then pop it. It'll come out almost every damn time. I'm telling you, I do it all day long. If you're stuck in wood, well, I was wrong. But anyways.
Rock, you can get out. All right. Well, I think, there's a couple of tips there that we kind of threw at you.
I got some safety issues.
Yeah. Well, safety's big this time of year.
A couple things that people don't, I can always pick somebody out at the ramp who's like a newbie to winter fishing. When the guy in front of you pulls his boat out of the water and drags all that water up on the ramp with his trailer, and it's 25 degrees out in the morning, I'm just going to let you in on a little secret. That water freezes and forms a product that we call ice. And when you walk down the angle of the ramp, which is downhill, and you step on that ice, you're going to crack your head and get what's called a concussion. Okay? And you're not going to go into protocol because you don't play for an NFL team. So we carry salt in our trucks. And if we're not the first person to the ramp, somebody takes a minute and goes down with some rock salt and salts the ramp. And then when you walk down to the boat ramp or walk down to the dock and you have to cross those wheel tracks, don't step on them. If you're picking somebody up on the ramp, because normally the docks are out in the winter, pull your boat up so that he doesn't have to walk down the middle of the ramp where all the tire tracks are on the sides. That's important. Number 2, and go put it on here, wear your vest from the time you leave the dock until the time you get back to the dock. If you have to add a layer or shed a layer, that's the only time you should take that vest off. If you have a little $99 special inflatable vest, leave it at home and get your zip up out, because your little $99 28-gram bottle inflatable vest will not float your ass when it's partially full because of the temperature and you got all them clothes on that are now waterlogged. And Mike and I just talked to yesterday an extremely experienced professional guide of the highest level with years upon years of experience, who fell in the water fishing by himself in extremely cold, dangerous conditions recently. And luckily, things worked out, obviously, because we were talking to him. But life jacket.
It can happen at any moment, no matter how good you are. It can happen at any moment. And I might add one last thing to that, George, is
I hope it's what I'm thinking.
Always fish with a buddy.
My man.
In the summer. What
if you don't have any buddies?
Well, then I don't know what to tell
Asking for a friend.
I don't know what to tell you. But, if at all possible, honestly, man, because, if you do have that little accident where you slip and fall and your boat's on spot lock and you're in any kind of current or anything,
you're done.
You're dead. I mean, you float away from your stuff.
You're done.
You can't swim back to it.
It's over.
You're dead. So, having that somebody in that boat, they can turn around, they can go after you, and help. So just be sure that you just be careful.
And I want to add to what Mike said. We're starting our 33rd year in business in a couple months. And we have talked face to face with numerous experienced anglers, not just a guy the other day who's a very experienced angler. Not no rookie.
Yeah.
We've had guys already that have almost died. Were shaken to the core so bad that they got back in their boat, luckily without dying, and sold everything and quit fishing.
Yeah.
So,
Scary stuff, man.
bring somebody with you. Wear your jacket.
Yep.
Remember your boat ramp safety. Remember your docks. If they're going to be ice.
Yeah.
And,
I like what Robert Brett says. If you don't have a friend, tie on a soccer ball named Wilson, and you're good.
I like the other one. Take your
mother-in-law.
fishing.
You'll be back pretty quick.
Wow.
I love Sam and Sam's comment, drive clothes on the boat. So what he means by that is take a big, and now you can buy like a money bag. I used to use just a trash bag and put a change of clothes in there. Because here's the deal. If you do fall in and you're 20 miles from the boat ramp and you have to ride back cold, the hypothermia is going to destroy you. If you do fall in, strip down, get your go bag out, put those clothes on, put your rain suit back on, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
Or if you don't like any of those suggestions, we have another option for you. Don't fish in the winter. Watch Tackle Shop Live and hear all these wonderful stories.
Hey, here's a question for you guys with boats. When you got an outboard and you come out, you're done for the day. What do you guys suggest? You got that water inside the engine. What's the deal?
Well, the nice thing is you got about 10 layers of clothes on. So when you pull up in the parking lot, you trim all your motor down, and then you go take your clothes off, that you have. It takes 20 minutes to get all that stuff off, and it drains everything out. So that's what we do. We pull up in the parking lot, we trim the motor down, let all the water run out of it. And then the last thing we do before we trim the motor up is pull the kill switch and just turn the key a couple times, squirt that little extra bit of water out, trim it up, put your thing on, head home, put it in a heated garage.
Yeah, if you're keeping your boat outside, if you got the garage life,
it's not, you don't have to worry about it. But
we're actually going to have T-shirts made up like garage life.
Outside storage.
And what are we worried about with the water in your engine?
Well, water in your engine, it's when it freezes, it expands. So there's all kinds of mechanical things. That can
live
happen.
well pumps, bilge pumps,
all kinds of mechanical things that can happen. So it's just pull your plugs and drain your boat on the way home.
Yeah, and if your boat's going to sit outside, do all that. But when you get home, and you're done tarping your boat down, make sure your motor is trimmed down like this. Because if it rains or snows, you don't want that going inside your prop housing. And then, you forget about it and you get busy and the weather gets worse. And then the next weekend, you're like, oh, man, they're calling for a big snowstorm. And, the wife has you doing this and that. And then another week goes by. Well, in the meantime, you're getting that buildup in there and it's doing a freeze-thaw cycle. And you can do some damage to your casing.
Yeah.
So it's like winterizing boats is a thing of the past. Make sure you run your favorite brand of fuel stabilizer religiously year round, not just in the winter, but religiously, like you're drinking the Kool-Aid at a Jim Jones meeting. Also, we like to run a carbon guard. Our brand is ring free. We like the Yamaha products because that's what we run. Mike and I, we've been doing this for a long time. We don't even think about selling a boat until we have 500 or 600 hours on the motor, and then we usually just keep them. Listen, keep your fuel treated. and keep the water out of your system. And if you get frozen out, if you're in an environment where you get frozen out for like multiple weeks, here's a little trick for you. If you didn't get to winterize, let's say you haven't fished for a month all winter. Pull your kill switch, pump your bulb up, crank your motor over till you flood it out, and you just did yourself a little good right there.
Yeah, keeps that nice and lubed up, you know.
Well, boys, my dynamite bomb for you this week is not a dynamite bomb. It's no hand grenades at all. It's a happy day in George World. Things are trending upwards. What I mean by that is tournament bass fishing returns to the scene this Saturday on Lake Sam Rayburn.
Nice.
And also, I've been perusing the roster and the schedule for the Fat Cat Newton League, also known as the NPFL. And lo and behold, Tommy Biffle.
Oh.
David Fritz.
Oh.
Kyle Welcher didn't get enough last year, taking everybody's money all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, a guy that's going to be here next week who, let's just say he subsidizes his income at the NPFL, Patrick Walters.
Yeah.
Patrick Walters is signed up again, obviously. I think he's won about $500,000 in 2 years.
Yeah.
Their schedule is Logan Martin in January. Then they have their championship at Lake Amistad in Texas in the beginning of March, which is pretty cool because the last time there was a tour level event at Amistad, it was an Elite Series tournament, and records were set.
Mm-hmm.
Then in May, they go to Hartwell. In July, they're off from the middle of May till the middle of July. They go to Pickwick. That's going to be a tough one. August, they go up north to Saginaw Bay. And if you watched that last year, I mean, you just catch like 100 fish a day. September, they go to St. John's. That's going to be hot. And then in October, they go to Lake of the Ozarks, and that is their season. I was really excited to read about the NPFL for 24. Mm-hmm. And
good for them having that.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
I like that St. John's tournament thrown in there just to like, it's going to be rough.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, Nick, you've got Highland Reservoirs, winter pattern. You've got deep in the, Mexico border in March, which is basically full-blown spawn. They've been spawning there for a month by then. You got Hartwell in May, which is one of the greatest spawning lakes to ever fish. That's where the big waking minnows and all that good stuff. Pickwick in July, it's going to be ledge tournament. Tough. By then, those fish have been scanned and hammered. Saginaw Bay, straight up, shallow water, beat down, and offshore smallie fishing. And then, like you said, the St. John. So now you have a little tidal river thrown in Florida. And then Lake of the Ozarks in October. So you have a big, gigantic, mega middle USA. I mean, that's a diverse schedule.
Yeah, and they really have them going from here to there to like
124 boats.
Cool.
Pros signed up.
Yeah.
Locked in. It'll probably take a few more.
Well, don't forget now, next weekend is the Federation Championship down on in Florida on the Harris chain, I think. No? Somewhere.
Really?
Go Gomez is fishing it.
No, it's no Federation Championship.
It's a Federation,
next week in Florida.
2-day Federation Championship qualification tournament.
No, he's fishing a tournament to go fish with USA Bass next year in wherever they go.
Championship tournament.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Well, I'm disappointed.
Go. Let me know what it is.
Go. I'm disappointed.
What series is starting this week?
BFL.
BFL.
Oh, the BFL. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. On Sam Rayburn.
Nice.
And now if you had the cabbage and the time, that'd be fun, man. Roll down to Texas, start off on the 6th. They got one next weekend. They got one the weekend after that. You could get your tournament on.
Yeah. There you go.
Let's do a road trip.
All right. So I hope all those tips helped you guys out for the cold winter fishing. Don't forget for Bassfest next weekend. You're not want to miss it. I'm telling you, you're not going to want to miss it. It's going to be something really special. And it was a great show. Thanks everybody for stopping by. Appreciate you guys like you don't believe. You will never know how much we appreciate you, our customers, and our loyal watchers. And we will see you next time on Tackle Shop Live. Sunny day, right there you took my breath away. Young and pretty, wasn't just a dream. The next day you called me up, you told me I'm your little buttercup. You came over and you fell into my arms. Well, I know what I feel. Please tell me your love is real. You make me smile when I think of you. If I am down low and I am blue, I can't get enough. You make me happy, I feel so fine. Oh, how I wish that you were mine. I can't get enough. I woke up all soaked in sweat, weird chills running down my neck. I'm going crazy from just the thought of you. A long blonde hair and your beautiful smile. Your sense of humor makes it all worthwhile. Don't make me wait, it's not a funny